Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bulwark. I'm JVL here with my very good friends and colleagues, Mona Charin, Will Salatan, and Timothy Miller. We are coming at you live. Hit all of the like buttons, hit subscribe. When we're done with this, go over to thebulwark.com and sign up for all of our free stuff. We give away most everything for free because we love you, the people.
You can chat if you subscribe. Chat with your friends.
Well, or then go to chat too. Anyway, big news. We got what sort of monster releases an indictment that requires news reaction at like 8:30 at night? That was inhumane to the journalists of the world, and I would like to decry that first. But we're just going to go around the horn here. Mona, give me what you got.
Well, it is. I've noticed that the Trump forces are saying, that this is further evidence of a conspiracy. They're out to get him. We know they're going to say that no matter what. And, the fact that he's been indicted in all of these multiple cases is because he's committed crimes in all of these various places. And so when you read through this indictment, it is chapter and verse. And so a couple big things to keep in mind about this. First of all, Trump is going to immediately try to remove it to federal court because he's going to say this is something that I did as president, and therefore it's federal jurisdiction. Unclear whether that will fly. It didn't work in Manhattan with the Alvin Bragg case. We'll see. But the other things to bear in mind about this case are that there is so much more of an incentive for the co-defendants to cut a deal because there's no chance of a presidential pardon if he does, God forbid, succeed in getting reelected. And there is a mandatory minimum of 5 years, which you don't find in the other cases. So there's a strong incentive for some of the people who've been indicted with him or are unindicted co-conspirators to cooperate. So those are my first big takeaways.
Will, what do you think, man?
So JBL, as you know, and as Bulwark readers and listeners know, I am our resident squish. I am the juror who is going to be problematic here because I'm like, can you prove that he really knew he lost the election? So when I look at these indictments, what I look for is evidence of corrupt intent. And of course, Trump is corrupt, but you have to prove it. Trump is also deluded. So what I'm interested in this indictment is they've repeated some of the evidence that Jack Smith had that Trump knew, that he was saying things that were false. But they've also added some other things. So among other things in this indictment, as opposed to the Jack Smith one, there's much more emphasis on the false elector scheme. And what they have there is lots of evidence of subterfuge in the process where we're having meetings of these so-called electors, but we're trying to keep it quiet because we don't want anybody to know we're doing it. All of which goes to that they knew that this was not above board, that they were deceiving their own electors, and they were deceiving Pence, they were deceiving the legislatures. It was all a corrupt scheme, and the subterfuge is part of that.
So, Tim, one of the things I thought of as I looked through this is that the truth is some of the co-conspirators here are much more exposed than Trump is even. Like Rudy is either going to go to jail or die, I think. Right. I mean, Rudy looks like the guy who is left hanging out in the wind more than anybody else in this indictment. Agree?
I just want to point out that Will is the squish is coming in maybe even a little bit to the right, if you will, or to the Trumpian crazy side of Bill Barr of his assessment. Even old Bill Barr is like, I mean, criminal intent is criminal intent. Speech as part of a conspiracy is still a crime. So anyway, some of these guys have exposure. Listening to Mona just there. For a moment, I was focused so much on Trump that I hadn't just sunk in with me, just like the 5-year minimum for Rudy Giuliani in Fulton County Prison. That feels nice. They might send him somewhere else, but that's nice to think about. I do think that they have a lot of exposure, particularly Rudy. Though he has the legal, there's a legal element to this, about, being an attorney. Maybe some of the other non-attorneys have even more exposure. Jenna Ellis is an interesting element of this too. I haven't
Yeah.
heard a lot of people bring this up. Jenna Ellis is for DeSantis right now. And she is having very heated Twitter wars with the Trump folks where they're being very mean to her. They called her a thunder C word recently, one of Trump's people. And
Thunder
so
cheesesteak? That's a weird
thunder cheesesteak.
insult.
Yeah. So having to care about these, and I hate to have to care about these internecine battles between MAGA deplorables, but in this case, this one is kind of relevant. I think at least potentially to, whether Jenna Ellis, might be more interested in playing ball maybe than some of the others. So I think that's another something to monitor.
The younger they are, the more likely they are to play ball because they have their whole lives in front of them, right? And so, like, I look at Jen Ellis and I think she's going to flip.
One other big takeaway you guys missed, I just want to throw out there, we're going to get the prints and the mugshot, supposedly. I mean, the sheriff of Fulton County has said that, and we have had this two-tiered system of justice in the way, not the way that they say it, where Trump has been treated better for his previous 78 felony indictments, and I was treated for my minor possession of alcohol in 2001 by the Boulder County Police. So, you would think that now at 91 he might finally get treated by like a normal criminal, and that's something to look forward to. I know, JV, you were about to get dark. I read your newsletter, so I just wanted to, before you got dark, I wanted to chime in with the things that kind of can warm our hearts a little bit.
Well, this is not dark. My big takeaway from this was that let's put Trump aside and let's look at the lawyers, right? Because his defense, I guess, could be, I was just relying on the advice of my lawyers. My lawyers said this stuff. Like, there's a difference between a real lawyer and a mob lawyer, right? A real lawyer is the guy who you pay to stand over your shoulder saying, no, you can't do that. Sorry, no, you can't do that. That creates exposure. You can't do that, right? And they're annoying as hell because they're always saying, sorry, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. These guys, the mob lawyers, are the ones who are like, absolutely, you can break into the bank. Here's when the truck with the bearer bonds arrives, right? That's what Eastman and Giuliani were doing. They were helping perpetuate the crime. But so a couple things. One, this is going to go on for forever. There is absolutely no way this case is tried before the election. It's just too big and too sprawling. There are too many co-defendants. And so the first question I would have for you guys is then, what is the practical political effect? Because looking at this, I mean, I don't know about you, I would rank in terms of the seriousness of the seriousness of the government's case. I think the documents case is basically open and shut. Like, it may be a minor-ish infraction. It's not minor, but there is no defense. He's guilty as sin. He's going down. I think this is probably the second most perilous case for him, and then followed by the January 6th, and then with the Alvin Bragg case at the bottom. But what do we get going forward if this is something that is just out there ongoing for a year or 2 years?
Well, doesn't the timing, the delayed timing of this coincide with the role that this is actually going to play? Let me go back to Mona's and Tim's point. Isn't this the insurance case? Okay, I know Trump had this whole thing about the insurance policy, but this is a legitimate case. The evidence is presented here. It will take longer. There's more defendants. There's more stuff to prove. It's a complicated RICO web. But it's also got the element that Trump can't pardon himself out of this. It's not federal. He can't manipulate it directly.
I don't think that's true. If he wins election,
I agree.
If he wins election, the Supreme Court is not going to allow a sitting president to be prosecuted by state and local.
But he can't.
What might happen is that it would be put on hold for the period of his presidency.
Could be put on hold, but again, that might as well go forever.
But isn't that important? Isn't it important to have a case that Trump can't make it go away? It's not as thin as the Bragg case. It's a stronger case, and it's not federal, and he can delay it, but he can't make it go away in the same way. Am I wrong about that?
Optimistic of you to think that we will have a justice system in 2029.
Yeah,
Trump is elected again, but sure.
No,
with his pony.
So it's completely, as with so much of what we're dealing with, it's totally uncharted waters. We have no idea. I mean, if a criminal is elected in 2024, still under indictment in the state of Georgia for serious crimes, there's going to be a move by the Justice Department or by somebody to delay it or to say, look, you can't possibly prosecute the sitting president. And this will all have to be decided, yes, eventually by the Supreme Court. And we have no clue how that would even look. So we're in such cloud cuckoo land now that trying to make predictions about it is absolutely impossible. I mean, it's lunacy.
Tim, isn't the cloud cuckoo land, though, that 54% of the Republican primary electorate seems to want this? Like, isn't like the craziest thing is that we've got half of the country, not really half, like 45% of the country, right? And half of that 45% looks at this and says, yes, I would like more, please.
They want to win, and they want to beat the people that are supposedly persecuting them, that are out there to get them. These, these deep state people that are turning up under every rock to just find any Christian God-fearing person who drives a pickup truck and put them in jail on trumped up charges, right? Like, they want this. This is part of this imaginary war that's happening in their brain. So yeah, that's cloud cuckoo land. I guess if I had to rank the cloud cuckoo lands, though, it is pretty strange to, put yourself back in 2002 and say to yourself and have somebody come up to you and say, hey, Biff in his time machine comes up to you and says, hey, in 21 years, Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani are going to be indicted as co-conspirators in an attempt to overthrow the election in Georgia. I mean, and then that he will be up for election again. I think to Mona's point, like, that is the part, I was watching CNN last night, and I was watching Scott Jennings, who's this, McConnell hack, grapple with this, right? And he's just like, there really is a non-zero chance that him speaking, being the Republicans, are staring down the barrel of a convention where we have somebody that has been proven guilty or is on the cusp of being proven guilty. You could put out whatever scenario. That is, I think, the oddest, because it is just. That is we've come to accept the Republican Party's depravity. Like, trying to game out what's going to happen with all these court dates, I think, is really, I agree with Mona. All right, so the hardest
the people are going to do what the people are going to do. What are the Republican elites going to do?
So one of the things that I think it's worth dwelling upon, and I hope that this trial and other trials will reinforce. We saw this back in last summer, when the January 6th committee was holding its hearings, and you had one Republican after another come forward and say, I wanted Trump to win. I voted for him. I was not going to violate my oath. I wasn't going to do what he asked me to do. But if not for the actions of those people, including Mike Pence, we would be in a much different world. And what I am hoping, I don't know how much I believe this is really the way it's going to turn out, but what I'm hoping is that seeing these people again and through these trials will remind some Republicans and Republican-leaning independents that there are Republicans of principle out there and that we owe them a tremendous amount. My fear is that just as the Republican Party of 2018 was already way more corrupt than the Republican Party of 2016, the Republican Party of 2023 is more corrupt than the Republican Party of 2020 was. And so we're on a trajectory of, will there be any more Rusty Bowerses or Brad Raffensperger's left at the rate the party is going? I don't know.
Steve Ducey on Fox and Friends. Steve Ducey on Fox and Friends is like the voice of reason these days over there on Fox. I don't know how much time you're watching Fox.
I saw
that is how bad of a situation we're in. Where it's like Steve Ducey is the one that's. I mean, just like he was asking pretty tough questions of the Trump lawyer and like put her on defense, and to the point where at some point she just kind of like blurts out like, you used to be a fan of Mr. Trump or something like that to Ducey, and Ducey's just like, I'm a little bit concerned about the trial, anyway. So new people could sprout up, new people could surprise us, but Ducey was actually speaking more sense than Will's man, Lindsey Graham, over on Fox.
Well, funny you should mention that, because one of the things that I came across when I was writing about Lindsey Graham was watching one interview in which Steve Ducey was doing that right after the 2020 election. He's the one saying to Lindsey Graham, I'm sorry, I'm looking at these numbers. I don't see how you guys are going to, pull this out. This is not plausible. So, there are people within Fox who, they have to interact with facts even more than Republican electeds do. And they some of them will speak the truth, and he's one of them. But to JVL, to your question about elites, I'm not going to give you a pony here. I mean, these guys are cowards. They've demonstrated that's been exposed. There's no reason to think they're going to change from that trajectory. That's who they are. The best that can be said for them is that they will try their hardest to obstruct the legal process, to defend Trump in the face of the legal process, all the while counting on the legal process to bail them out. That's the Deus Ex Machina that's going to take out Trump, but they won't have their hands on. Their fingerprints won't be on taking out Trump. They defended the dear leader to the end, but that's what they're counting on. As long as they'll allow that to happen, which is an open question, the Republic will survive.
But how does the legal process bail them out at this point? Because I mean, I don't know. You guys have seen the same things I've seen. They've sure made an impression on me. It is not clear to me that there is anything the legal process can do that is going to stop the Republican voters from renominating Donald Trump. And then it's up to the voters, right? I mean, this is, I just
the
don't
Ron
understand.
DeSantis super PAC strategy, JVL. I reported about this in your newsletter, right? Jack Smith gets his January date. We get him in the clink between January and Milwaukee, and the Republicans have to fight it out on the convention floor with Donald Trump from jail, like General Raddick controlling his delegates. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe that's how Jack Smith bails them out. I just don't see how the way the legal system was going to bail them out, right? The theory of that was the indictments will be so bad that Republican voters will turn on Trump, either because they think he's guilty or because they think he can't win. And that hasn't happened. And so the legal system has failed to bail them out. Like what is as you said, I mean, really, they're just hoping for the magic cheeseburger at this point. And the truth is, that's not really doing anything, right? I mean, if all you're doing is, and in fact, they're doing worse than nothing. A lot of them are running cover for him.
Mm-hmm.
It's really
including his opponents.
Vivek Ramaswamy is going to be his lawyer.
Good God. All right. So something I want to, I'll unpack on tomorrow's next level a little more deeply, but I want to tease it out right here with you guys. As I was reading the Fulton County indictment, the one thing that struck me most was that Trump and all of these people, their bedrock belief was that this peaceful transition of power stuff is just on the honor system. And if we don't care about the honor system, we can do whatever we want, and there ain't no law to stop us. The Fani Willis indictment is really an attempt to say, okay, well, we're going to try to use the existing laws as they are to make it so that it's not the honor system anymore. And we're going to try to hang, we're going to call this thing,
so to speak,
a criminal conspiracy, right? This thing of ours. So to speak, very funny. And I don't, part of me is very sad that that's what it has come to, that, we have to go and use RICO laws to do something which for 200 years was just like a routine. I am sorry, Bob Dole, it never would have occurred to Bob Dole not to simply concede the election.
It didn't occur to Richard Nixon, the worst Republican president before now. Nixon had more integrity than to challenge the results of the election, even though he had a colorable case in 60 that he had been robbed, but he thought it was just not something that he was going to put the country through. Anyway, look, one thing we can say about, totally agree with you, JPL, about the fact that, the norms are the first thing that fell, right? And so if you don't have those norms, then you absolutely have to rely on the law. There was an old expression that, the law allows what honor forbids. But, we don't have honor, but we do have the law. And I've got to say, in the case of the good legislators of Georgia, they designed a RICO statute that is very capacious and that is much broader than the federal RICO statute on which it was apparently originally based. But it does include all this stuff. Plus, Georgia has all these laws like making it a crime to encourage an elected official to violate their oath of office, which is not a federal crime, So, okay, this is where we are, but it isn't so one way to look at it is, it is tragic that it's come to this, but it's good that we still have these laws to fall back on.
So
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't feel bad, JBL. I don't feel bad. I mean, I'm sorry about the decline of the norms. That's not good. But I view this as an opportunity to Trump-proof our constitutional system and our legal system. So what happens when somebody doesn't care about the norms? Well, we need a system that's designed to protect against that. Looking at this indictment last night, the number one thing that I noticed was all of these junctures where the Trump people could go to the state legislators, not even in some cases, just like an email, where like, we don't even need a hearing. We're just going to call these people on the phone. They're our buddies, they're Republicans, and we'll get them to appoint our electors. I'm looking at this thinking, Jesus, in how many states can that happen? And what do we need to do state by state to prevent corrupt state legislators, the ones who are already gerrymandering and doing everything else, from just deciding, you know what, I don't trust the official count. We're going to send the Trump electors or the whoever electors to Washington. I mean, that's deeply alarming. And I don't want to count on norms to solve for that. I want to count on laws.
This is just one thing
Tim,
I want to.
Do you think that red states where that might be a problem, do you think that they're going to jump on this opportunity to Trump-proof their systems?
I don't think so, though. I do think it's worth to put a button on your critique of Fani Willis's timing at the top. I thank God for her, because this did happen in other jurisdictions, by the way, and she was the district attorney that said, no, this is a crime, and I'm going to put in the work to actually put forth a legitimate case here, even more so than kind of what we saw out of Bragg. So kudos to her, and kudos to Raffensperger and Kemp, right? Like the reason why this is happening in Georgia is because history is contingent. People's decisions do matter, right? And Trump tried to do this in Georgia because it was a Republican state. He didn't try it as aggressively in Pennsylvania, for example, or Wisconsin, for example, because they had a Democratic governor, right? He had a Republican state. He thought he could do it. Kemp and Raffensperger said no. Jeff Duncan said no. And now Fani Willis is saying, and now I'm going to prosecute you for it. So, that is one of the silver linings. I'm not as dour as you about all this. It's one of the many silver linings, just like the upcoming Trump tiny little fingerprints that we're going to get, hopefully.
All right. Well, I'll just say this. We'll put a button on it to get out of here. There's a moment in the indictment where Ray Smith is testifying before the Georgia State Senate, and he's just lying. He's like, and there are 65,000 unregistered voters who voted and 10,000 dead voters who voted. And when you testify before a government body, you are sworn in, right? This is and the guy was just sitting there lying. And we all saw this happening everywhere in real time. People just lying as if there were absolutely no consequences for anything. You just say what you want. What are they going to do? What are they going to stop you? It's because they had watched Donald Trump do just that thing for 7 years and had thought, I guess we can just do this. And it would be nice, even if Trump doesn't get it, for all of these other little, mini capos and mini foot soldiers to get squashed like bugs by the rule of law for trying to do the same thing. Because that would have, what is the French phrase, Mona? Pour encourager l'autres, right? It would be good to send a message to the next wave of illiberal, semi-authoritarian hacks who are interested in this sort of thing, that they could wind up with all sorts of exposure, and that even if the big guy gets away, they might not. All right.
It's also worth noting real quick. It may already be working in the sense that, they were expecting huge protests out in front of the courthouse. Didn't happen. Because of what's been going on with the January 6th people, that people are taking note. There are consequences.
Yeah. So Mona, Will, Tim, thank you guys so much. Everybody who tuned in, thanks for being with us. Come over and do the next level with us tomorrow. It'll be me, Tim, and Sarah Longwell. Enjoy the indictment. I was going to ask you guys to all rank your favorite indictments, but you can put that in the comments. Go tell us what your favorite of the four indictments are. And when you're done, give us a follow and then head over to thebulwark.com and subscribe for all the good stuff we do for free every day. See you later.